are back with the Buffalonian podcast. I'm your host today, Dom Loss. As Jason Derulo said, riding solo today. No Joe today. As you know, we record on Tuesdays, and this is a pretty important Tuesday of the year with Election Day, and Joe is stuck at work all day, unfortunately, covering the election from morning to night. So it is just going to be me riding solo today, as I said, and excited to jump in, talk, obviously, the down five, talk a little Sabres. Today, obviously, is a very important Tuesday for the NFL season because it is the trade deadline. And we're recording in the morning, so we'll talk a little bit about that. But I first have a couple just thoughts about the game on Sunday. What a game it was! 30-27, Buffalo wins. Tyler Bass comes through with a 61-yard field goal. Kind of an old-fashioned duel between Tua and Josh, and obviously being there, working the game, great atmosphere. Crowd was loud. Could really sense the importance of the game for the Dolphins. They threw the entire kitchen sink at the Bills. They were a desperate team, which makes them a very dangerous team. And my first original thought is just that, you got to be a good sport and tip the cap to Miami. I thought they played a really good offensive game. Tua, I thought, played his best game against the Bills. He was decisive. He got the ball out of his hands very quickly. Really only made the one mistake on the first drive, kind of bobbling the snap, causing a Greg Rousseau sack. And other than that, I thought he played a very flawless game, ran the offense very well, made a couple of really nice throws, layered throws. Obviously, hit Tyreek on a big throw down the sideline, extended the play, rushed for the first down. I'm sure Dolphin fans will concern him diving head first. But yeah, he played a really good game. And it is very funny to me that, we talk about Miami coming to Buffalo and how tough it is, and they did luck out a little bit with the weather being, just about 50 degrees, not super windy, obviously no precipitation, no snow, but this is starting to become a trend in the Mike McDaniel era of the Dolphins now in his third season, that the Dolphins offense just plays significantly better in Buffalo than they do in Miami against the Bills. We saw it this year, right? Miami really had a really good game plan, scored 27 points, very efficient. When the Bills went down to Miami in week 2 this season, they scored 10 points, 2 with those 3 interceptions, those the pick six. Oliver with a big sack on fourth down, same thing with Von Miller, really shut them down. You saw last year, right? Final game of the year, Miami scores 14 points, loses 21-14 at home for the division title in week 18, gets shut out in the second half. Down in Miami, they come to Buffalo. Yeah, they got crushed, lost by 28 points, but their first 2 drives, they scored touchdowns, scored 20 points, had a better offensive day in Buffalo than Miami. And then you saw it again in 22, right? I know they won the game in Miami 21-19, but they only scored 21 points. When they came to Buffalo later in the year, I wish it was colder, they lost that game 32-29. They had a really good game, scored 29 points, and obviously that, play with Jalen Waddle, long touchdown that game. And then the playoff game, a little skewed because of the turnovers the Bills had, but they still scored 31 points in Buffalo, right? So it's kind of very strange to me that Miami has had significantly better offensive success playing the Bills in Buffalo rather than playing home at Miami. So that is very confusing to me. But yeah, they played a really good game. Credit to them. And then my other point was, I thought Sean McDermott coached a very good game, and I think he deserves a ton of credit. There's really three really decisions, and then for the fourth one, just kind of a general thought about McDermott's coaching performance on Sunday. But First, the decision to kick the field goal. Right? I don't think that was a unanimous decision to kick the field goal. Talking to plenty of fans, some people thought they should have punted, right, and just played for overtime. The CBS broadcast was, standing up on the chairs, screaming that they should be attempting the Hail Mary. Right? They didn't think they should be kicking the field goal. So that was not, I don't think that was a 100% approval rating to kick the 61-yard field goal. To trust Tyler Bass, especially with the day he was kind of having up and down, but to have that trust in Tyler Bass to make that field goal, to make that decision was massive. And that's why they won the game, because he made it. But again, I think that took a lot of stones, because I don't think a lot of people, not everyone in the league would have been comfortable having Tyler Bass, who struggled a lot, hasn't really been great with range recently, to kick a 61-yard field goal, a franchise record, obviously a career high. was very impressive. Two, I thought the clock management in this game was perfect by Sean McDermott. Miami, the final possession count, I believe, was Miami had 9 possessions, the Bills had 8. But if you look deeper into the box score, really the Bills had an extra possession. Miami really only had 7 possessions because they had 1 possession at the end of the first half with about 14 seconds left, where they just kneeled the ball out, and they had the last possession of the game, 5 seconds, where they did the pitchy woo woo, and Greg Rousseau was able to get Jalen Waddle on the ground. It's all because of the clock management from Sean McDermott, right? He didn't rush. They didn't snap the ball before the 2-minute warning in the first half and really drove down the field. Obviously, we'll talk about the offense's first half performance, but get 3 points. Dolphins aren't able to double dip, right? Aren't able to take advantage of they have the ball coming out of halftime. And then obviously at the end of the game, you get sacked on the first down, the first play of the drive. And instead of panicking and calling a timeout, hey, let's let the clock run. Let's not give Miami an opportunity to potentially, with their 2 timeouts, come down, kick a game-winning field goal. That's obviously they get helped out with the Jordan Poyer 15-yard unnecessary reference penalty. But again, I thought McDermott's clock management really was critical in this game. And sometimes he struggles with that, but I thought he was on point. And the third and final decision that, again, was really important in this game was going 4 on 4th down. 4th and goal from a little past the 1, so you can't really sneak in anything. Mostly the 2, actually, it was probably the 2. The Bills got stuffed a couple times, right? They weren't having success down there, and it could have been very easy for him to kick a field goal and make it a 10-9 game, but to have the belief in your offense that they were going to be able to execute allowed Joe Brady the creative freedom to call a very exotic play, right? With the orbital motion to Khalil Shakur as kind of a eye candy play, and then to hit Matt Collins on the backside. So again, to have the belief in Josh, the offense, and Joe Brady as the play caller, I think, again, a really great decision from Sean McDermott. And finally, you got to give him credit for rallying the troops, right? Again, down 10-3 in this game, the Keenan interception that took points off the board, to then the 97-yard touchdown drive. It could have been disastrous for the Bills. It could have really snowballed. And again, we'll talk about the first half offense, but again, they were able to make the adjustments offensively, get enough stops defensively in this game, and obviously the trust in Tyler Bass and the clock management. But again, I credit to Sean McDermott and the coaching staff for being able to make adjustments mid-game on the fly. Was critical. And finally, I want to talk about the first half offense, because I think this gets overblown. Oh, the Bills just continue to start flat at home, and to an extent that's true, right? Down 17-3 to Arizona. Obviously, Jacksonville, they hammered them, and Tennessee down 10-0 in that game, down 10-3 in this game. I think it gets a little overblown, right? The first drive is bad, right? They start run, pass, 3 and out. Bad drive. I'm not going to defend that drive. Second drive, though, they drive down, not really drive down, because it was a great return from Codgerton to get them in plus territory. But 3rd and 3, they do a Josh Allen run to the right, designed QB run. They lose about 7 yards or whatever. So I think it was about 7 yards, and they had to kick a 40-yard field goal to get 3 points on the board. Really, Dalton Kincaid misses this block. And if Dalton Kincaid executes in that moment on that block, that might have been that definitely would have been a first down, potentially a touchdown, right? So then we're talking about 7 points, not 3 points, or at least the drive continuing based off execution. Third drive, the interception, right? You're driving, got a couple of nice plays to Shakir. James Cook runs the ball down to 11. Run looked, do the slant to Coleman. Good route. Good decision from Allen. Hits him in the chest, maybe a little bit of the shoulder. Pops up an interception from Jalen Ramsey. Who are you really going to blame there? Is that an offense, or is that just execution? I don't think it's coaching. I think that's just played out execution. It's Keon Coleman dropping a ball that led to an interception, right? Taking points off the board. So again, instead of at the bare minimum probably looking at 3 points, potentially 7. If he catches that ball, he had a running start at the 5-yard line, he at least gets very close to scoring a touchdown. You get no points because of an interception. So again, through 3 drives, they have 3 points and could very easily have 14. And then finally, the last drive of the first half, the holding penalty, right, on Osiris Torrance. That was not a holding penalty. Wiped out a Josh Allen rushing touchdown, right? And then, you have to be careful with the clock, and they kick a 49-yard field goal. and you're going into halftime down 10-6, and you scored 6 points on 4 offensive drives, and you very easily could have 21 points, right? And it's a matter of, obviously, execution, because Kincaid misses his block, Keon Coleman drops the ball that leads to an interception, and a bad call, a questionable call by the referees. So it's hard for me, like, oh man, they're starting so slow, whatever, but it just seems like it's more the players just having just a little bit of a mental lapse sometimes on the critical plays. And if they're able to clean that up like they were in the second half, like they had been in the second half at home, and play a complete 60 minutes, I don't think this game might have been as close, right? Again, this is another time where the Bills have kind of let their team that maybe isn't quite on their level stay close. But I know we've been waiting all pod for me to now talk about the down 5. So here we go. Number 1 for me, the Bass roller coaster ends in high. Obviously, it was an emotional kick for Bass, emotional moment for him. Almost ripped off his helmet. That almost was a 15-yard penalty. But yeah, from my point at the press box, they were getting the field goal on the far end, and that might be the most pure field goal I've ever seen in my life. I mean, it was right down the pipe the entire time. Not a second of, oh my gosh, it's leaking, is it going to stay? Or, oh my gosh, does he have enough leg? No. The minute that kick did not get blocked, it was going to be good. 100%. And great for Bass. Listen, he had an up and down day, right? I thought he was their best player in the first half, if you can make a case, right? Makes a 40-yard field goal, makes a 49-yard field goal. Both kicks looked very easy, had a good leg, plenty of room to spare. And I was like, all right, TV. And then before that field goal at the end, right, misses the PAT, which made it a 12-10 game, right? That's a big miss, because then the Dolphins kicked the field goal to make it 13-12, and it should have been 13-13. It forced in your offense to go for 2 right after the next touchdown, but luckily, Keon Coleman was able to catch that ball and make it 20-13, but again, put some more pressure on your offense, and then 26-20 doinks in a PAT to make it 27-20, and it's like, okay, probably not great. Right now, everyone wants Bass's head, and then obviously he comes through with a big moment with 61 and a field goal, so good for him. Second point, Ed Oliver, to me, equals a system quarterback. And to me, that means that he needs a very good one tech around him to be great. It's very similar to Tremaine Edmonds' conversation when he was in Buffalo, right? That he's a guy that isn't great at shedding blocks, and he needs like a good one tech in front of him, one tech defensive tackle in front of him to keep him clean so he can make plays. And it seems, Ed, he didn't have Daquan Jones all of last season, but so this is what makes it a little puzzling for me, is because we've seen his ability to play, with below average DTs and still perform. But it just feels to me this season, if Daquan really taking a step back, kind of taking that, the injury from the pectoral, not getting back to the form he was before, Ed is just, it's tough, because I feel like he made, if you look at the film, Tua was getting the ball out so quickly, it's tough for him to make plays, the D-line to make plays. So I don't think he performed as bad, but yeah, to me, he's a system quarterback where he needs kind of a system around him to shine. I don't think he's a guy that could just go out and get it on his own. But it's frustrating, because you saw the Chargers game last year with the big sack and the big moment, get some one-on-one wins. We've seen glimpses of it. It's just not consistent enough for Matt Oliver. It's just not consistent enough. Third, what is going on with all these wrist injuries? I mean, Keon, after the Poyer hit, DeJuan Smoot has surgery and is now on IR with wrist injury. I mean, we don't have Amari. I was going to say Cooper Kupp. We don't have Amari Cooper. He's out with the wrist injury. Benford was out with the wrist injury. So to have your wide receiver 1 out with a wrist, didn't even be in the game, and your top corner, and then, I guess your wide receiver 3, because you would probably put Khalil Shakir as your wide receiver 2. Now potentially maybe Silent for wrist injury. Smoot's injured. I didn't even say anything about DeJuan Carter, who's on IR with wrist injury. So, oh man, I don't know what's up with that body part, but it's failing the Bills right now, and it's quite frustrating. But the depth will be tested, and we'll see what happens. We still don't really fully know what's going on with Keon, so hopefully, I feel like if it was broken, he had a broken wrist, we'd already know. So, and maybe some kind of ligament sprain. So, again, we'll just have to keep going. Obviously, Sean McDermott is incredibly vague in his Monday press conference about that. But fourth, I wanted to give this guy a shout out. I thought Matt Collins really stepped up and played his best game of the year. Obviously, this is a guy that has been criticized a lot. I don't know if it's all been his fault, other than he didn't track the ball very well in Houston, and he's been probably put in a position that he really shouldn't be. But I thought he played a great game. Right, caught all five of his targets, 30 yards, touchdown. Had a big third down early in the game. Had two big third downs. Right, kept the drive alive for the field goal. Had another third down conversion. Obviously, caught the 2-yard touchdown. So, I just feel like Matt Collins is what we wanted Trent Sherfield to be. Right, kind of that wide receiver 4 or 5, can give you a little bit on offense, in small bunches, and is a good special teamer, and and can run blocks. So I think he's been kind of overhated because this is just the player he was, and we knew this going in, and he's played. I mean, honestly, he's probably exceeded my expectations. Right, I think he's played a little bit better than I thought he was going to. It's just a situation of you didn't expect him to have to be like your wide receiver 2 on the outside, but I thought he deserved a shout. And finally, is Ray Davis the RB1? I think that is a big question that has to be asked because there was a time where he had 5 snaps, 5 touches, 86 yards and a touchdown, and he's been very efficient. And this isn't a knock on James Cook. I think James Cook has played very well, right? And Ty Johnson had a big 3rd and 1 conversion, also had a big run in this game. He's been your typical really good RB3, but Ray Davis continues to run the ball very effectively. Had a big run this game. Obviously, has a 63-yard touchdown. We've seen him now in the backfield make big plays, and it is kind of interesting. James Cook obviously had the big game, 17 for 111, 2 touchdowns against Seattle. Like, this is the most talented running back room they've had in the Josh Allen era, and I don't think it's particularly close from their 3 running backs, Ty Johnson, Ray Davis, and James Cook. But for me, Ray Davis, I feel like deserves some more run. I believe he deserves some more run. I think he's played very well, and a lot of credit to him. But that is the down 5. I do briefly want to talk about the trade deadline before I talk about the Sabres. But my lasting points on the game, offense did this job in the second half. Right, special teams obviously was massive. Right, big kick up, big punt return from Codrington. I thought Sam Martin punted well. Cam Lewis had a nice tackle on special teams. They did a good job on the kickoff coverage. Obviously, field goal kicking kind of a little up and down with missed PAT, but again, the 61-yard field goal. I mean, come on. So defensively, just really frustrating. A really frustrating afternoon, right? 20-13, 27-20. So 2 times the Bills had a touchdown lead in the fourth quarter, and just felt like, man, the Bills defense can get off the field here, get it back to their offense, really liked our chances of winning that football game, and they just weren't able to, right? They had the 4th down, had a couple third downs. They just weren't able to get off the field, and I think that's, again, credit to Tua, because I thought he processed really well. I thought the defense took away Tyreek for the most part. Obviously, he had a couple of those catches. Waddle really didn't do anything. LBJ really didn't do anything, but it was a lot of Devon Achane and Raheem Mostert out of the backfield, and Jonnu Smith. And I think that's frustrating as Bills fans a little bit, because that's, other than, they did a really good job against Seattle with Kenneth Walker out of the backfield in the receiving, the passing attack to the running backs, and they just didn't do that well of a job this week. And again, Miami with their motion and their speed causes a lot of issues for opposing defenses, because you don't want to get beat over the top and give up a big play. But you give up numbers in the run game, and we saw that get exposed a little bit. Now, the Bills have been a pretty good run defense all year, so I'm not super concerned about it, and there's not a lot of teams like Miami that threatens you with that much speed. But it is definitely something to look at when we look at the trade deadline, which is today. And for me, it's going to be interesting what the Bills do. Obviously, they're very tight against the cap. But could we see a wide receiver added, right? Is Keon Coleman, how banged up is he? We didn't really see that much Curtis Samuel in this game. I know he was active, but it seemed like he was kind of just an emergency wide receiver. So do they add like a Darius Slayton, more of a deep threat, speed kind of guy? Is that what maybe they add one more receiver, because, if Keon potentially missing some time and Curtis Samuel not being 100%, do you want to see Matt Collins? I know I just talked about raising him a little bit, but do you want to see him in that big role again? And then defensively, safety, I feel fine about. I thought Hamlin and Rapp actually played a very good game. Cornerback, I feel fine about because I thought Kyrie played a pretty good game. Obviously, you got beat in that one double move by Tyreek Hill, but really, other than that moment, which he almost actually they just missed his hand on the pass pickup, I thought he played a really good game. So I'm good on defensive back. Linebacker, again, that's just Matt Milano coming back. I didn't think Menard played a good game. I don't think Dorian Williams played a good game, so that was a little frustrating. But Milano coming back is kind of that trade deadline acquisition. Edge, it's a conversation, right? Because DeJuan Smoot now maybe lost for the season. You just got Vaughn back. They keep playing Vaughn pass rushing situations. I'd love to see him get a little bit more run. I know they're trying to save him a little bit, but I do think he's still good enough against the run where I think he deserves some more time. But at edge, Jadeveon Clowney maybe, on Carolina, obviously they're looking to probably sell, but I think it's hard for the Bills with how many edges they still have, right? Javon Solomon, maybe they want to see what he's about. Casey Toonhill, who also got banged up pretty much right after Smoot, but he seemed to be okay. He's been a fine depth player. You have Vaughn, you have AJ. And actually, I thought Groot actually played a pretty good game on Sunday. So I think they may be looking okay at the edge, but I definitely do believe they need to add an interior defensive lineman. Daquan Jones is just not doing it. He's not performing well at Albert, not performing well enough. Austin Johnson's and Eli Akuno, they're just depth defensive tackles, and then obviously they don't have Dwayne Carter, who I think is fine. I'm going to say something, and this might be controversial. I definitely think that Dwayne Carter has been kind of a little overrated. He's made some really nice plays in the run game. He's really flashed there. But as a pass rusher, he really wasn't all that effective. So I don't view that as a mega loss at the moment. He's obviously still developing, and you want to see him play to develop. But I think has gotten a little overrated. But Sebastian Day from Tennessee, again, another team, 2-win team. Is that an option for the Bills, right? To add a player of his caliber to kind of lower Daquan Jones' snap count, maybe get him more on a Von Miller kind of snap load with the veteran rest and kind of saving him a little bit. So I definitely think if we see anything, it'll be an interior defensive lineman, hopefully, for the Bills. But we shall see. We'll obviously break that down if any trades happen with the Bills or involving the Bills, I should say, because maybe they trade someone away. I doubt. I mean, some people thought they could trade Kyrie away. I think after this performance, he showed his value to the team, right, being that third outside cornerback. But yeah, we'll break it down betting on the Bills on Friday. Obviously, a couple hours till the trade deadline as we're recording this now, but excited to see what happens with the Bills. Obviously, a big win, big divisional win. Right now, 3-0 in the division, 7-2 overall. You have a winnable game coming up against Indianapolis, and then you have the Chiefs in 2 weeks at home. So, and then the bye. So, if the Bills can get to 8-2 to play the Chiefs, I think that would be a very fun matchup. So, with that being said, we'll move on to the Sabres for a little bit. I don't really know what to say. I feel like we're beating a dead horse with the Sabres. We can kind of continue to talk about the same things that frustrate us. 3 in a row, right? You have some momentum, right? You lose the first 2 games in Prague, come home, lose to the Kings, excuse me. You go 0-3-0, no points in the first 3 games, 0-6 in points. And then all of a sudden you get back to 500, right? 4-4-1. Kind of feel like you have some momentum now, and they lose 3 straight games in regulation. This is kind of the Sabres MO. They're just very inconsistent. And they do this every year. They go on these runs of 3 or 4 games where they don't get a single point. And I'm sorry, good teams find a way, even when they lose close games, to get a point, to force regulation, to force shootout. You lose 2-1 to Detroit. Man, you can't get a game-tying goal 2-2 even if you lose 3-2 in overtime. That's a point, right? You got to stay ahead of schedule, and they've never been able to do that, and it's been one of the bigger reasons why they have just never been able to make the playoffs in my adult lifetime, Joe's adult lifetime. Like, it's just ridiculous. 3 in a row. I don't know. Again, I don't know what their fix is. We'll talk about that in a second. But Levi, again, not another great start from him. Lance Mizgowski of the Buffalo News made a good point of what is the development plan for him. But he's only played 5 games, started 5 games in about a 40-day span. I know some of that is Prague, where they had a week off after that start, but it just confuses me that if they're going to ride UPL as much as they have in this early going, why did you waive James Reimer? Like, wouldn't it have made, like, are you telling me that I feel like James Reimer could have been producing the same as Levi, maybe even better, because I think Levi's gotten off to a bad start. Like, you couldn't have potentially have just, hey, Levi, spend the first couple of weeks in Rochester, get some games under your belt, right? We'll have Reimer up as the backup over on UPL and see how that goes in the beginning, right? And now you don't have the option to send him down because they lost James Reimer off waivers to Anaheim, and Felix Sandstorm, the number 3 goalie in the organization, has sucked in Rochester. So again, it's just a mismanagement of assets. Like, I don't understand. Like, if you're if they were going to do a 50-50 split, I would have understood. But they didn't. They've kind of rode UPL a lot. Obviously, they split the, I was going to say doubleheader, a little baseball talk in me after the World Series, but the back-to-back, they split that, which makes sense. But UPL has gotten a lot of starts, and I'm just questioning what they're doing with Levi. And it's another thing to question what they're doing with Yuri Kulik, because he's a guy that's just sitting in the press box. So again, just really questionable development plans right now for the Sabres. I guess one positive coming out in these last couple of games, I thought Rasmus Dahlin played his best game of the season. I thought he played very well. He's a guy that had that little injury in training camp, and you wonder, did that contribute to maybe a little bit of his slow start? But I thought he played his best game. I thought he's been playing pretty well, but he hasn't been playing at Dahlin level well. Today, the other day against Detroit, I thought was his finest moment of the season. Obviously in the loss, but yeah, if he can play like that, that'll be big for the Bills. Jeez, the Sabres. Last 2 points here. Jack Quinn just has to sit. Like, again with Yuri Kulik, play Yuri Kulik. Obviously, Zach Benson's been banged up, missed a couple games. There's potential for him to come back and play starting today against Ottawa, but we'll see with that. Jack Quinn just has to sit. They've tried everything. They've tried a way of Cousins, with Cousins with different line mates. They even tried the kid line last game with Peterka, Cousins, and Quinn, and it just hasn't worked. And Jack Quinn just needs to sit, take a couple weeks off, mentally regroup. I also think Cousins is coming close to that, because Cousins, it just seems incredibly panicky with this team. Cousins plays like a period on the wing, and then they screw that and go, let's go kid line with Peterka next game. It doesn't seem like they have a plan. Like, for me, it's like, okay, the way McLeod is playing, hopefully Krebs can play third line center. Let's have McLeod play second line center, put Cousins on the wing, and put Jack Quinn to the press box for a little bit. Like, I think that's the move, but it's just very confusing that the Sabres still have Dylan Cousins at center and still have Jack Quinn in their lineup and still have them together. Like, I'm sorry. I just don't understand that. Like, you can say all you want about, you're going to drag maybe the other lines down, but dude, you're 4-7-1. I'm sorry. It's not like you're getting great results with that line being together and all the other ones. Like, I'm sorry. My last 2 points here. Zucker and McLeod have played really well, I thought, so far this season, and it would be great to have one more. With all that cap space, it would have been great to add one more forward, especially because Zach Benson's gone down, and with Quinn Cousins getting off to the slow starts they've had, they just have no one to replace him. They've refused to play Yuri Kulik. So that's very frustrating. My last point is the Sabres just aren't a fun watch. And they just aren't. I mean, there's no way about it. Like, they give up really bad goals. I don't think they're bad defensively, but their goaltending just can never make a big save. They're one of the worst goalies tandem, Levi and UPL, in saves in high danger situations. I believe that they're 30th out of 32 tandems. I mean, it's just terrible. 30th out of 32 teams in goalie save percentage on high danger shots. So every time people are, oh my God, the defense broke down. Well, yeah, because every time you feel that way, they give up a goal because the goalies have just not bailed them out. And the defense has been fine. They've been above average. Their offense has been terrible. They've been one of the worst offenses in the league in quality, right? They shoot the puck from they take so many unnecessary point shots. All the talk of, oh my God, they have to get to the net, play for deflections and rebounds. Well, they're playing for that, and they aren't getting any rebounds, and they aren't deflecting any goals in. So, like, they're just playing really low percentage hockey offense. It's like if an NBA team decide, hey, we're going to shoot, instead of shooting a bunch of threes, we're going to shoot a bunch of, mid-range jump shots. And if we miss, we'll just crash off as a glass. And they're shooting the mid-range jump shots, not hitting, and they're not getting the offensive rebounds. So just bad, man. Just bad. But what can you do? The Sabres obviously play tonight home against the Ottawa Senators, who are 6-5. Have gotten off to a better start than the Sabres. Then they go to New York for the Rangers on Thursday. They will host Calgary on Saturday. They will host Montreal on Monday. So 3 home games out of 4. I mean, the Rangers is a tough game on the road. I feel like your 3 home games are pretty winnable. You got to get on a run here. The next time we'll see you on the 12th. They have 4 more games, and I don't know. I mean, a lot of people are talking about this is a must-win, and it sucks to say that you're 4-7-1, so this is the 13th game of the year, right? Like, I mean, this is what the Sabres do. Like, they just shoot themselves in the foot repeatedly, and that is no other word better than frustrating. But that will do it for this edition of the Buffalonian podcast. Thank you so much for listening to my voice for the last about half hour. Joe will be back for betting on the Bills this Friday with me. We're excited to break down Bills at Colts. Last 1 o'clock game for a little bit for the Bills. So very excited. And thanks for listening. And we will see you on Friday. As always, I was waiting for, in my mind, I was waiting for Joe to tell me what do I always end with. But now I just had to say it on my own. It's very, very, very funny for me. But as I always end this, as I always end these, go Bills, baby.